I want to give a quick shout out to Caitlin for putting this on my radar. Tag their video in the captions below. This document can be found in my tree of links. Scroll down to important political info to know, and Democrats choose polls over people impact research, which brings us to this letter that was published in February 24th of 2022. I was initially skeptical at first because of the interested parties, but if we go to impact research, we find that impact research is the proud pollster for Joe Biden, and the members of the team match the members of the correspondence. Now let's go through this document. So, Impact Research created a political strategy for the Democrats that they clearly adopted, and this is in regards specifically to COVID-19 and the pandemic. Where in early 2022, they came up with a strategy saying that it's time for Democrats to take credit for ending the COVID crisis phase of the COVID war. So, my first point, this is not a war, this is public health. However, they want to point to important victories like vaccine distribution and providing economic stability to Americans, and they want to fully enter the rebuilding phase that comes after any war. So again, this is public health. You can't treat it like a war because despite the government saying the pandemic's over, it still exists. It's still ongoing. It never stopped. They just decided, we don't want to deal with it anymore. We want to claim this as a victory. Put a little feather in our caps, despite not doing the work to actually achieve the outcome of ending COVID. Where I want to start with this very last point, where they say stop talking about restrictions and the unknown future ahead. Where they say that if we focus on how bad things still are and how much worse they could get, we set Democrats up as failures unable to navigate us through this. When 99% of Americans can get vaccinated, we cause more harm than we prevent with voters by going into our third year talking about restrictions. And if Democrats continue to hold a posture that prioritizes COVID precautions over learning how to live in a world where COVID exists but does not dominate, they risk paying dearly for it in November. What this means is that they decided, we're going to call it over and change the goalpost from ending COVID, having COVID zero, completely eradicating it like we did with the flu B Yamagata, to I guess we just have to live with it now, guys. So we ended it, yay, because we changed the goalpost. And again, this wasn't because of data-driven, evidence-based conclusions that they came to this. They said it's going to hurt us in the polls. Which brings us to our next point, don't set COVID zero as the victory condition, where they want to say, the virus is here to stay and that COVID is technically over when it's considered a mild illness like the flu rather than COVID being completely gone, and that COVID should be treated as an endemic disease. But again, it's a pandemic disease because it's everywhere in the world. Pan means global, everywhere. It's happening everywhere, every time, all at once. Where they also then want to lean into the idea that it's inevitable and that most people in the US will eventually get COVID, and that most Americans are no longer fearful of this. So again, this is them shifting the goalpost, where they're pretending that COVID is a mild illness and that it doesn't have systemic issues, and that it doesn't cause things like long COVID. Where the next major point of this document is to declare the crisis phase of COVID over and push for feeling and acting more normal. Where they want to say, thanks to Democrats, we are nowhere near where we were 2 years or even 1 year ago. Democrats have a tremendous opportunity to claim an incredible historic success. They vaccinated hundreds of millions of people, prevented the economy from going into freefall, kept small businesses from going under, and got people back to work safely. Because of President Biden and Democrats, we can safely return to life feeling much more normal, and they should claim that proudly. But again, they didn't do anything. They're just saying, we shifted the goalposts and we're pretending it's over, while millions more people every year get disabled from this virus. So I want to be very clear that this was a political strategy. It was not based on scientific evidence or scientific fact. They chose to do this for short-term gains for their own political careers.